Candice, it's so great that you're going to be part of the TNA team, be behind the scenes with us as a former champion, bringing all of that experience to all the women here at TNA. It's going to be great. We're just so happy. And I've got your contract here. I think it's got everything that we talked about. And we just look forward to, building this together.
Wow. Thank you so much. It feels good to be home with wrestling. And I'm just loyal. I've been loyal with Tommy for 20 years, loyal to the business. And I didn't know that this could come back. And so to give me a platform so that I can help build this with you guys and be a small little piece of that and see where I can fit in there on any angle, it's just really a dream come true. I was actually praying, with what I do back home and I help build people's dreams. I said, how can I do this on a bigger level? And it was on December 26th, and my phone rang, and it was Tommy Dreamer. And I was like, wow, God, you worked through Tommy Dreamer. Amazing. And it kind of scared the crap out of me, because I thought, can I do that? And when he asked me to come back and help behind the scenes, I didn't know if I had that in me. But stepping foot in here, the company you guys have built, from everybody, from talent to crew to makeup, I felt right at home. So I'm happy to be here. Thank you for the opportunity.
We're so excited.
Thank you. Let's
awesome.
do it.
That's
yeah.
awesome.
Woo! Thank
Thank
you.
you so much.
Thank you, Dream.
Thanks for never letting me down. Appreciate you.
And we all have our 15 minutes of fame, and I'd like to take a couple of my 15 minutes to talk about the rights and the wrongs in the world of professional wrestling.
And it is for the WWE Championship.
This match is for the ECW World Heavyweight Championship.
The World Heavyweight Championship.
The match and new NWA Heavyweight Champion of the world.
We appreciate you guys coming out and taking your time to support women's wrestling in America.
This match is for the AWA World Heavyweight Wrestling Championship.
Who would have ever thought it? Candice Michelle making a return to professional wrestling in some capacity, at least. But there you heard it. Candice Michelle, former WWE Women's Champion, has signed with TNA Wrestling, although within that, I don't think there's any indication of her being in the ring. Although at the same time, I would not doubt it in the least if somebody somewhere somehow talked her into it. But it's an interesting thing to see. Before I go any further, welcome to the show, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. You are listening to the Rights and Wrongs of Pro Wrestling Podcast. This is your host, Mr. Green. And I was just going over the opening segment that I had here as you tuned in. You would have heard three distinct voices there: Carlos Silva, Candice Michelle, Tommy Dreamer. That was the signing moment that they caught on camera. And it sounds like she's signing. I mean, it sounds like this is a legitimate moment, like she's signing to do backstage stuff. Again, not that I would ever doubt that she would appear on screen / in the ring at some point. Like it wouldn't shock me if they talked her into it. But this does answer the question, why was she there at the TNA AMC debut, all those weeks ago now? That was one of those things like, yeah, it's great to see her, but why is she there? Well, at least now this answers that question. So we will see where this goes. I don't know if she has any aspirations of stepping back into the ring or whatnot. She's had an interesting career, just as a little sidebar. I don't know how many people actually remember that she had a stint as an actress. We'll call it that, because I don't know if she's ever had any real major television roles. Of course, she's appeared in things, obviously, but not like it's a TV series that I could point to, like, yeah, she was the star of that, but probably most notably speaking, she was the GoDaddy girl. Back when that was a big thing, GoDaddy.com. And she was its spokesperson, probably the thing that made her famous. And then, of course, she migrated over to the WWE, and she would become the women's champion in 2007. I don't know if she had a stellar career with that portion of it. She got hurt, and she started off like she was picking up steam and getting used to the ring and everything, and getting better bit by bit. But then she got hurt. If I remember correctly, I think she had broken her collarbone or something along those lines, and she just never was the same. She never could reclaim that same momentum and speed and just style that she had. Just could never get it back. She retired in 2017 at an independent show. I don't know if House of Hardcore still runs today. I doubt it, since Dreamers with TNA. But at the time, he was running House of Hardcore, and that was where she had her retirement match against Lisa Marie Varon, the former multiple-time women's champion across WWE and TNA. But I wanted to just put that up because, just to see her make this return to the wrestling industry is, well, for me, it's fascinating. I don't know about anybody. Most people out there might not even care. but for me, it's fascinating that she's made this kind of loop back around to pro wrestling. But since we are in the mode of talking about things pro wrestling related, but not necessarily WoW, this is the time that I should go right off into the segment built for that. So, news, views, and updates. Here we go. And we started off with the news. We got the Candice Michelle has officially signed with TNA. We just talked about that. But signings, we also got Nikki Blackheart, indie standout who is now signed with WWE, reportedly. And she is due to report to the Performance Center relatively soon. So, I want to say the sad thing about that with the independent promoters out there. I can certainly understand that the promoter, and I don't want to say the promotion, I want to be clear, the promoter, the person that actually asked her to come in or whatever, whether that be a he or she or anything in between. For them, pretty sure that they would probably be happy for her. But at the same time, it's always the same deal for the promotion, is that they're not going to come fulfill these dates because they got a window that they got to fulfill for WWE. And sometimes, depending on what that window is, the obligation to that promotion, that indie promotion, it may dwindle. It may dwindle down just a little bit. Speaking of Blackheart, she just dropped the MP Women's Championship to Priscilla Kelly. And in doing that, the Winnipeg Pro Wrestling promotion announced that Blackheart would no longer be able to appear in their Voyager Cup. It is, it's just one of the realities and cruel deals of the business, is that when that call comes and somebody that's advertised on your show is called up to WWE, there's a good chance that they're walking out. Now, some of them, like Blackheart there, she dropped the title to Priscilla Kelly, doing what she needed to do on the way out. The tournament, however, the cup, I can understand her bowing out of that. It's like, I can't win this thing, and I got to go ahead and go. So yeah, it's great for them. Like I said, on a personal level, I'm pretty sure they all look at her and be like, hey, congratulations. It's wonderful for you. Good luck out there. All the good stuff that everybody always tells us. But then if you're working within that promotion, it's like, whew, God, what are we going to do now? In the case of when they have to go and it's unexpected. Like I said, here, I don't want to end on the note that happens. It does happen. But I don't want to end on the note that would lead anybody to believe that Blackheart did it. She dropped the title. She moved on, bowed out of the cup, which is probably disappointing for those fans that might have been paying their money to see her. But, just better to do it now than wait till the last second. The Bellas. Oh, the Bellas. They are, I don't know if it's really fair to say that they're terrible or bad or they can't, I don't know if it's fair to say that. It's probably fair to say that the expectation of the fans have changed around the Bellas. Never mind the fact that they kind of still represent a down period of WWE women's wrestling by the estimation of most fans. They were part of that diva era. They seemingly cheerleaded the diva era. And now WWE's moved away from that, and they have gone towards trying to make their women wrestlers come off like women's wrestlers. The reason I bring this up is because the Bellas have now declared themselves as, we'll call it number one contenders to the Women's Tag Team Championship in WWE. As nice as that is for them, and I'm pretty sure it's a shoe-in that they'll probably win it at some point, maybe not that particular match, but they're probably going to get those titles at some point in time. But it was noticeable that it wasn't an overwhelmingly positive response. Having them show up, yeah, they have star power within that company. There's a name behind the Bella Twins. But I don't know if that audience, as they've been trained for what wrestling is now, I don't know if that audience wants them. I certainly don't. I'm not going to say that everybody was booing. That's not the case. But there were audible boos. Seemed very mixed, very polarizing. And until they can prove differently to some people, they probably are going to get hit with that. But fact of the matter is that the Bella Twins are back. They have declared themselves as we're next in line for a title shot. I am going to lean on the side that they will get the championship sooner rather than later, just because they're the Bella Twins, and it seems like a custom-made fit for them. Whether the fans accept them or not is a different issue. It's probably best that they just flip the Twins heel. If they're going to boo them, just let them boo them and get something out of it. But congratulations to them. Well, either way, that's it's wonderful that they have, I guess, gotten the opportunity now to go after those tag team championships. I don't remember whether they were there or not when they was in WWE last. Kendall Gray, the former Evolve Women's Champion, has vacated the championship. So why would she do this? Well, because she's, I guess, taking a promotion. I don't know if they would list it as a promotion rather than a transfer, but I'm going to call it a promotion. She's going off of Evolve to NXT. So there we have that not defeated for the championship, seen as ready to go up to, I guess, the next level. Kendall Gray vacates the Evolve Women's title as she goes up to their next stage, the proper developmental stage. And I guess congratulations again are in order. Congratulations to her that she is making that step up. I don't catch Evolve regularly, but I do catch it here and there. I mean, it seems a very enjoyable little wrestling program, and I say little for the WWE, but it is like their bare bones. It's like their version of an indie wrestling show, an indie studio wrestling show. Not a lot to it in terms of that. It's just here we are in this studio setting, and we're gonna have some matches, and we probably get 50 people in here, maybe, and that's that. So it's different, even by NXT standards, and that used to be their indie. But I was corrected by somebody saying, no, NXT was their super indie. That was their version of Ring of Honor. And I was like, you know what, you're right, because that wasn't their version of an indie show. The ones that don't have that kind of buzz. NXT was their version of Ring of Honor when it was in their black and gold era, and some people might say it's going back to that now, even though they're not hiring every indie star that they can find anymore. But Evolve would be closer to that lower tier of independent wrestling show, even though, of course, we know that they got money behind them. We know that. Maybe the closest thing to compare it to would be current day Ring of Honor, where they now are in a TV studio. That would likely be the most comparable point. I don't know if that was the entirety of all the big news that was going on out there in the world, but I don't know if there's anything else that I should be talking about either. The big takeaways of the wrestling news over the past couple of days have been those things that I just brought up, but there's also been the other two that weren't necessarily women's wrestling related, but it bears some talk about. Well, one definitely, but it wasn't within the ring, I should say that. The Rhea Ripley, Jade Cargill spat that took place across Twitter, but apparently was not brought up or referenced in the promos that they've had with each other. Maybe they decided just to leave that behind and let's not get under each other's skin enough to where we're gonna really want to beat somebody's brains out. So we had that. I mean, I thought that might have translated itself towards some of their promos. I thought it might have had some relation to that. Apparently not. It doesn't seem like they're going that way. The promos that I heard seem to not even mention it. So I hope that they can talk their program up. Rhea's, what I heard from her sounded great, but I think that some people were expecting a little bit different. But what are you gonna do? And the other thing was, and this one wasn't women's wrestling related. I just, I saw it. I was like, I have to bring this up. That you got a match where apparently a referee, an OVW referee, suffered what appeared to be a seizure in the middle of the ring. That is horrible. I mean, that what else can you say? That was horrible. I don't want to condemn the wrestlers that were in there also, because I'm sure no one probably taught them what to do if something like that happens. I mean, you might assume that people would know. But how many times have wrestlers been told that, hey, if something happens to this referee, help him. I don't know if they thought that he was working or whatever the case may be. It's unfortunate that that element exists. But you have to understand that the element does exist. I'll never forget Bret Hart saying something to the effect, this is Wrestler with Shadows documentary. And he was talking about having a match with Dino Bravo, and that he was, during this match, he was tossed out and hit his sternum on the ring, that steel bicycle rack guardrail thing, right? And he was saying, he cracked it and he couldn't breathe. And to shorten out the story, he was essentially saying like it was a scary thing to feel like you could die out here and the people would just assume it's part of the entertainment. And it is so unfortunate. But that's kind of where that lies with that ref, is that I don't want to think that any of the wrestlers, I really don't want to believe that. I don't want to believe that any of them would just purposely ignore this guy. I want to believe that they just assumed the wrong thing. Now, I could be wrong about that, but it would just break my heart to think that they would get in there and be like, I don't give a shit what he's doing. We're going to finish this match. You know what I mean? That would just be awful. So I'm going to assume the better half of that and say that, okay, they probably just thought that he was selling and decide, okay, well, he's doing this thing. Let me continue on with the match. But yeah, that's a scary situation. And I'm sure it had to have been scary for him. There's no one, until the match was over with or something like that, they probably wouldn't even know. But it's good to say that there's been a positive update for that particular referee. I think, what was his name? Dallas Edwards. So, that's good that is the case. That he's okay apparently. It's just unfortunate that happened mid-ring, where I shouldn't say mid-ring, or mid-match, where it probably was assumed by most people that, and not just the wrestlers, most people, that it was just part of what was going on. OVW had issued a statement regarding that in that time, and it said, last night during Rise, referee Dallas Edwards, a member of our OVW family, experienced a medical emergency during the broadcast. OVW takes the health and well-being of all our performers extremely seriously, and as a company, we are distraught to see an injury to one of our own. Well, again, it has been posted that he's has a positive update, that he himself is being positive. He's doing pretty well. I think he had a Facebook post. What was that? Let me pull that Facebook post up. And Edwards said, hey guys, I know everyone seems to know about the scary incident that happened last night at OVW. I have been evaluated by a hospital, and I have a concussion as well as subdural hematoma, brain bleed. Okay. So, but he said he would be getting a CT scan Saturday morning, and if all goes well, he'll be able to go home. So, oh man, yeah, it is. Meltzer said it's one of the worst things that he's seen in a wrestling ring in a long time. I would tend to agree. It's wonderful that he is feeling better and that he is recuperating. Sounds positive, but yikes. in any case, I wish that young man all the best and that he's able to get back to what he is doing, his life, and possibly his love. I'm sure he loves being a referee. So I hope he can pull all those things together. Again, nothing specifically women's wrestling related, but that was a big story, and that affects just the wrestling community because those things can happen. The referees can get hurt too. I know it's 2 wrestlers in the ring in most cases at a minimum, but it's 3 people working, and the ref is one of them. So anyhow, we will move on. We're done with the news, views, and updates here. Let's push this thing forward and get to the Talkin' the Talk, our musical interlude, and then when we come back, off into the review.
Hey guys, we just wanted to come on here real quick and address the fact that we were cheated out of the Georgia Wrestling Awards this year. We did not win Greatest Tag Team. In fact, we were not even nominated for Best Tag Team.
And can I just say, which, for the record, we are not trying to badmouth any other tag teams out there, okay? We are not those kinds of people. But if you were going to decide on who was the best tag team of the year, wouldn't you start with who has the belts? I'm just saying.
It also should be said that we are the first One Fall Wrestling Tag Team Champions, and with this title reign, we have been undefeated in tag team action for all of 2026. We have had the most title defenses of all time in One Fall Wrestling, and we've been the longest reigning One Fall Tag Team Champions of all time.
I'm not one to make excuses, okay? But clearly, the system is rigged. If we weren't even nominated, all right? Somebody has it out against us, and we will not stand for this, okay? It's all right.
Here I am, trying to get festive, trying to get in the mood. But I'm not really feeling lucky these days, thanks to Goodrich setting up this match. I mean, we're putting all of these women together. I don't get it. My opponents, Maddie Max, Miss Media, Miss Podcaster, I don't know, Miss Influencer coming next, we'll see. And then there's Valentina, who has her head stuck up her own Stromboli. She can't even get it straight. And then that brings me to my own tag partner, the Hollywood whore, Lexi Gomez. Lord knows we have all of our history. But you see, ladies, there's one thing you just don't get. I'm the Marvel's Women's Champion. I am... You know what? Actually, actions speak louder than words. And that's what I'm going to show you this Sunday at Luck of the Draw.
When I say, hello, Eve, I'm talking to everyone. Because when you cross the threshold into Eve, you leave the reality that you are running from behind you at the door. The thing is, all the girls in the back seem to be running from the same one. See, when you get into wrestling, everybody is in your ear telling you that one day you will be the star of the show. But that simply can't be. But on the 8th of March, there is one match where all the stars from around the world will align themselves to find themselves in the Sudden Death 16. Fitting name, I'd like to add. Well, see, I embrace the cold, hard truth that I am no star. Because I am the fucking moon! I am the one who will change the tides. I am the one who cannot help but radiate even in our own darkness. So please, please follow your favourite star to the O2 Indigo and see me eclipse every single one of them. And then I'll go on and extinguish another star when I take whatever title I see fit. But girls, the real reality is your life is going to get so much easier when you know your place.
And we are back. This episode of WoW was episode 422, season 4, episode 22. Title, The First Defense. Air date, March the 7th. Chronological number, 178. And it started off with a recap of the previous week's main event. That was Penelope Pink and her win over, well, I should say previous week. Previous weeks, plural. Her win over Tormenta. This covers events leading into this particular episode, or more importantly, to what comes up next with Santana Garrett, because it goes into Santana Garrett versus Reina Del Rey. It shows Garrett's abduction and her walking, not her, but her being walked up the ramp and out of the arena, we'll call it, since it's not really a building. This leads into the Sibley Scoles portion of the open, where she is searching for Santana Garrett. It shows in black and white, I assume for dramatic effect. The first thing I had to write here, the absolute first, I was like, at least somebody was trying. At least somebody was trying. And not that I expected, in some other form that the entire locker room was going to be out there, but at least there was some concern, some effort, somebody trying to find where this person went, opposed to, well, we'll just have to wait till next week to see what's happening, guys. I don't know. That type of deal. Scoles is actively looking for her. And we got the camera following her around. She goes by I guess their catering area and some other place, and then she's outside by I call it the laundry room, but the camera's got inside, so we're going to say storage. She found Santana Garrett as she was walking around yelling, "Santana!" And Santana was inside said storage room, the same one that the Alliance was in the night that she was abducted. Scoles calls for, a janitor, somebody who happened to be within earshot of her calling for help. He uses his key to get inside the room, although I'm pretty sure Santana Garrett had not been drunk the night before. She could have got up and opened the door herself. So Scoles goes in. She finds her. She talks to Garrett. She's like, you remember what happened? And Santana doesn't remember anything. She doesn't know how she got there. And Sibley helped her out of this location. Again, if there can be nothing said here, they took out the obvious complaint. Why is nobody looking? I mean, you would have liked somebody to try to stop her from being kidnapped in the first place. And as I said in that episode. But at least here, Sibley might have been the only one looking, but she was looking. I don't know what Santana Garrett's friendship circle in WoW is anymore because, her tag team partner Americana, last I saw, was she might be a couple of months pregnant at this point. Princess Ozzy has not appeared on their TV as of late. Tormenta maybe. I mean, there's not a lot of people that's in her circle, I guess, these days. So, I mean, there's the argument of that, I guess, in terms of why nobody walked out or looked for or tried to stop it or something like that. But I was just happy that anybody, gave enough of a shit to go out there and try to find this woman. And not for nothing, Sibley's got some pretty strong arms. I think if it weren't the entire enlightened around, she might have been able to take Smart. So that was how the show opened. The only thing that I could have asked for there is I wish they would have found a better location rather than the same laundry/storage room that they locked the Alliance in. But that's neither here nor there. They go off into the title sequence. That's next. The Positivity Open. And then the next segment is Top Tier. They come out to have their promo time. This is where Campanelli shines. She, if nothing else, is good on the mic. I cannot take that away. She mentions Full Metal Massacre, and Nigel is very excited. I don't know why we haven't seen one of these before, but, I'm pretty sure we have. Because it sounds like it's just going to be WoW's no DQ, no count out match with the Full Metal Massacre name. That's what it sounds like it's going to be. And unless it's going to do something that is going to be entirely different than what WoW has been known to do, I don't expect some sort of car crash hardcore match that we've gotten other well, let me qualify that, because there's certain things that I don't think they have the capability, or anybody for that matter, unless you're an indie show, to compete against. So I'm not going to say that they're going to do anything close to what you get on AEW. Nobody should be doing anything close to what you get on AEW. Them getting close to a WWE style thing, maybe. Let's take it down to 2 or 3 notches, and you might have that. But that's what I expect out of Full Metal Massacre. I expect the name. I expect a chair or so to be used. But unless it's going to be something completely different than what we've seen already, WoW has had the most sanitized, cleanest hardcore matches I've ever seen. That is the absolute truth. But this is where I guess Campanelli gets to sell the match and try to further put over top tier. I don't know if there's anything that they could do, they being WOW, not top tier, to help elevate the concept of the Trios Championships. They've had it for a significant amount of time. Now, I'm pretty sure we know that television reign is coming to an end. But despite the fact that they've had it, and I know Nigel has sold the idea like you're the longest reigning Trios champions in history, in TV history, as a big selling point for them. But again, I don't know if that's enough for them. I would have thought, and this is admittedly hindsight, I would have thought that if they were going, and I know this had never happened, but if they were going to try to elevate those particular titles, they would have needed to have brought in names aside from the WOW norm. No one was ever going to take those championships seriously as they existed in WOW, other than the fans that WOW already has. Those fans will take those titles seriously and they'll enjoy them. And I don't think anybody would argue that. But to have them have a broader appeal, if top tier, let's just imagine that during the reign that they did it, and they didn't need to have named wrestlers all the time because they're heels and they would be able to get away with this. If they just had like 3 jobbers every so often that they could just beat up, but they can claim that they brought them in from some prestigious place, and then every once in a while you have one that comes in with that has some name value to them, and they can still get by and thereby elevating the championships. But they would have needed to have beaten somebody who has name value. And there lies the problem. It's the same problem that exists not just for the Trios Championships, but I mean, it in some regard, less of a problem, but some regard, the Tag Team Championships suffer from the same thing. And you might be able to say even the women's, the world, I'm hesitant to say that, but the World Championship suffers from that to some degree also. You would make less of an argument for that particular title now, maybe because Tormenta had it, but then, you might look at the reign and that might take something away from it. It might take something away from it just with when it's taped and how it's presented. There's a lot that goes on with WOW that seemingly rubs other wrestling media the wrong way as it relates to them. But I thought that having other people that will want those championships, go after those championships, who have a name and a bank of credibility already attached to them, going after those titles would only help elevate the titles. And again, same rules could apply across the board. It could apply to tag and the singles championship. I do not expect any of that to happen. But let's just say, I mean, this is a long shot, okay? So before anybody leaves me to comment like, that'll never happen, but I understand that. I'm just saying, let's just go with the scenario. Let's say that the Brawling Birds from AEW leave AEW. And they're out on the independent circuit taking bookings. WOW, in a perfect world, could bring them in for a couple of shows, get them a couple of wins underneath, just enough to get them tag title shot against the team that you want to elevate. In this case, we'll say Miami Sweet Heat. Sweet Heat goes over in a wild ring, beating this team that's revered by most wrestling fans out there, thereby elevating not only Sweet Heat, but the tag team championships they represent. Again, I know that's not going to happen, but, just the offer. I was saying that because the trios title has always been presented in WoW as well. This is longest reigning, and it's important and top tier, the greatest tag team or the greatest team in all of wrestling, and all that's fine. But it would have been nice to help kind of pad that with things that would make the average wrestling fan question it. Like, well, maybe they are that. They might not be the best, but they might be up there in terms of who they've beaten. They just beat Hayter and Windsor and whoever. Anyhow, the next segment is another video package. This is the video package of Destiny Diesel. This is the second one that we've gotten off of her on WoW, isn't it? It was nicely done, but it almost feels like it was a second debut. Like I remember sitting looking at this like, didn't we do this already? So there is a point within it that does get past that where there's not a question of it being a second version. Because she talks about herself no longer being a rookie. And I'm like, oh, she's had one match. And she's not a rookie. How? How is she not a rookie anymore? She's wrestled once. And even that was in was it trios or a tag? It wasn't just her on her own. And I was like, how are you not classifying yourself as, are you still a rookie? That's how I see it, at least. I mean, and is that wrong to say, okay, well, you had the one, so now you're a vet? Is that what we're going with? So anyhow, this transitions into backstage promo with Diesel and Kalaki, and it was fine. Although I will say at the end of it, it felt like a bit of the promo got cut off. I mean, that's just me. Maybe you can go back and look at it yourself. But at the end of it just felt like it was like, was she still trying to say something? It's like it got just kind of edited short or cut or whatever, however you want to phrase it. So this is to set up the match that's following the promo. That match being, next segment, Animal Instinct versus Kalaki the Island Girl and Destiny Diesel. The first thing I wrote is that Jinx looks like she has a new coat. And I honestly, both of them looked like they had new coats, but it was very evident on Jinx. And I said, I like it. It made Jinx and Collins look like they're opposite sides of the same coin. And I, just in that alone, liked the look. I did not get the feel that here's this crazy dog trainer and here's this eccentric cat lady. I didn't get that vibe out of them at all. And truthfully, if he doesn't bring it up, I would not even think that. If it weren't brought up in commentary, it's not like we don't see Goldie Collins walking her dog to the ring and actively showing the world that I've trained him. We don't see Katarina Jinx walking out there with her hairless cat and showing people, hey, look what I have. This is, this eccentric, unique cat for the world to be in awe of, or we don't see those things. It would be easily acceptable for me at this point if you were to tell me that, hey, these are just two well-off, eccentric weirdos who one happens to like dogs and one happens to like cats, but that's a minor point. But they're just two eccentric weirdos who decided that, you know what, pro wrestling is how we're going to show the world that we actually worth more than the money that we got, or that it's like their reality TV opposed to becoming a real housewife or whatever. They chose professional wrestling. That I can see out of them. I don't see this dog trainer thing anymore. And I really wish they just, steer away from it. I don't see the cat thing anymore. I wish they'd steer away from that. They looked like two rich ladies who were just opposite sides of the same thing, and this is what they just decided to do it themselves for whatever reasons. And I'm perfectly fine with that if they were ever to take that route. McLean intros Destiny Diesel as if it were the first time that we saw her. I didn't get that. Like, why wasn't this her debut is what I wrote down, and I asked myself throughout this match. Like, well, why wasn't this the debut? It seems like this is the one that they would have liked to have been the debut. So why not just go with this one? They're all taped. You put it in any order you feel like it. You just have to change the commentary to match said order, but you put it in any order you feel like it. It didn't have to be second. So why not? But despite the fact that this was like a first meeting, or however you want to put it, this also comes across, or at least, I'm not going to say they didn't do it before. I'll just say that they made sure that you knew it. Like Kalaki is Diesel's mentor. The match is fine. And not for nothing, I know I've given somewhat of a hard time to Animal Instinct at points. But this is maybe like the like I said, seeing them come out and I getting a different vibe off of them. Seeing them working the match. Like I don't know why, but I felt the heel in them this match. Probably, the one spot that I really liked that they did. When Kalaki's on the second rope, Collins is sitting on her, because I don't like that every heel team has to pose and do that by it. But they had their own version of it, and it worked for them. That's why I liked it. Collins is sitting on the back of Kalaki, and when she steps off and she's backing up, hands in the air like, hey, ref, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to be choking her like that. That's just enough to distract her so that Jinx can come and just give a solid kick in the head. That's a heel tag team. And I was like, okay, so it was very minor. It was a very minor thing, but it showed the personality of the team. So I applauded it. I didn't get Diesel herself. It felt like everything was pushing towards her getting into this ring and her showing the world what she's got. This is Destiny Diesel time. I'm going to show that I can run over everybody. And first off, I don't get the engineer gimmick. I just don't. I do not get the engineer gimmick. Maybe somebody out there can explain, well, she loves trains and what else. I don't know. I just don't understand it. But the second thing is like, I didn't see that she did all that much. And I don't want to be mean. I don't. But I'll say this. This is like, it feels like the third time of recent years that WoW has put somebody in the ring that quite possibly isn't ready to be there yet. And look, if they're not ready, they ain't ready. And if you want to have them there, then keep them and train them. But it's no fault to admit that, this person ain't ready to be on TV. And she might not. But when I look at a match and I see this person who basically did the same 2 to 3 moves without a single lockup or taking a bump, I'm starting to think that, they might not be ready yet. She didn't lock up. Didn't go down. Yes. I didn't see what it felt like WoW was trying to get me to see. Like they wanted me to see, or they wanted the viewers to see, Destiny Diesel is a top prospect and we got to hear WoW and look how great she is. And it felt like that's what they wanted me and anybody else that was watching this to see. And it's probably very likely that they've gotten some people to feel that way. Like, yeah, she's the greatest signee in wrestling history. But when I look at it, I'm seeing somebody who feels very limited. That's the first thing I thought. Like, she feels like she's very limited. Yeah, she did a shoulder block and a crossbody and a drop kick. I was like, but there's variations of the same thing. I got to jump up and off the ground and hit you with something. Not once did I see a lock up. Not once did I see any sort of exchange. Not once did you get most of what you should be getting out of somebody who's a first year student. It ain't got to be, a stellar debut every time you debut somebody. They can have a basic match. But if she isn't capable of doing a basic match, she might not need to be there. And it puts them in a bad position. Because if they're being pushed or set on TV before they're capable of doing what are they supposed to say? No. Mesmera had no business being on TV. That's another former WoW girl. She had no business being on TV. Not in that capacity as a wrestler. Not talking about a personality, whatever she could do as an actress or what I got. Yada, yada, yada. I'm not talking about any of that. I'm talking about that one thing as a wrestler. She didn't have any business being there yet. She wasn't ready for it. And I put it on television. Crystal Waters looked like a sweet enough young lady, but she had no business being there yet. And they did not do her any favors sticking on television when she wasn't ready to be there. And that's what I'm starting to feel here. Maybe it'll change. Maybe next time we see on TV, she'll get in there by herself and have a stellar match with somebody. That could happen. But what I expect to happen is that she'll be back in another tag team and she'll stand on the apron while the other person does the bulk of the work, was what you got right here. And look, if that's what needs to happen, that's what needs to happen. But if you go back and you look at this match, 90% of this is Kalaki. If you could count the moves that Diesel did, she probably had 10 things that she did in the entirety of this match. So I don't know. She did her 3 clothesline, shoulder block, whatever it is, and tagged out. And the match continued. Nigel sold Kalaki as the veteran of the ring, which was good and it's true. I really wish that they had leaned into that earlier when Kalaki got there. As I said at the time, she could have been the wild legend. She could have been presented as that. It's not too late. They can still get back to it, but, it would have been good if they brought her in as Kalaki and they acknowledged, because they've already acknowledged that she's Tracy Taylor. They've already acknowledged that she's been in the wrestling business for 20-something years. They've acknowledged all those things. The only thing I would say is just reach out to some of these places that had or have footage of her wrestling across multiple promotions, multiple people. People have gone on to be big names and stars, and she was there, wrestling against all of them. And that elevates her and wow, put her on a pedestal. Let her be WOW's resident legend that they can praise and, talk about the good old days of wrestling and what have you. Put a little shine on her. It ain't gonna hurt. Animal Instinct did well here. Even the cradle suplex by Collins. The first time we saw it, it didn't seem like she had it as well as it would get. Now it seems like it's becoming part of her repertoire. And she has added in the cradle suplex along with the exploder. Bravo, Ms. Collins. Bravo. I know that there have been several people that have spoken very highly of you several months prior to this, right down to the promo. And I was maybe one of the people, I was a holdout. I was like, I don't see it yet. I don't see it. But I am going to admit, she's starting to win me over. Part of that does have to do with the promo that follows this match. And we'll get to that. And I'm not even going to say her. I'll just say the team. The less cartoony they feel, the more I like them. That's just my personal preference. But anyhow, Jinx bumped mostly for Diesel. So I actually think I saw more in Jinx than I did with Destiny Diesel in this instance, because I felt like, well, I'm getting the vibe that it's just become Katarina Jinx's job to try to make this look as good as she can. So, so my eyes went towards her rather than to Diesel in this instance. And look, there's nothing against her, but I don't see it. I don't see this, this rookie sensation, this blue chip athlete. Not in this environment. I just don't see it there yet. So anyhow, when we get towards the end of this match and it's time for Diesel to not intervene, well, I guess intervene would be the thing. This is where it's like, I can't prove this. This one of these segments like this, I cannot prove. But it felt like there might have been a little bit of a flub there. So we get the cover by Collins. Diesel comes in and breaks it up. Collins gets up and verbally addresses Diesel. Diesel tries to take a swipe at her, and she gets put in her place by Goldie Collins, the heel who just outdid the babyface in this instance. When she being Destiny Diesel gets up and staggers about, well, clearly she got kind of turned sideways and had to find her way to get to where she was going. so she could turn towards Kalaki and they could stack themselves up in the corner. Then we get that little exchange that happens there that gets Diesel out of the ring. It felt like in the effort of the pin that Diesel might have been a little bit out of place when this went down. It felt like she should have been down there running and getting ready to break it up, rather than like the referee had to break up the pin, seeing that Collins was cheating, opposed to Destiny Diesel gets over there and she stops Collins from cheating, which is what they had been using the old leverage pin that Collins had introduced to WoW. They had been using that for we'll say the last 3 matches. Now in this particular match, they went for the same finish, where Collins, or where one of them, would have used their legs to try to give leverage to their partner in the roll-up. We saw Diesel run over there to try to stop it. She just looked like she was a few seconds off of getting there, and the referee had to like, "Hey, I see you on the rope." Nah, again, I cannot prove that was what was supposed to happen, that Diesel was supposed to get there. It felt like she should have, but that the referee had to call it in order to save it. And if that were the case, then good on the referee. But it felt like, go back and look at the video. It's probably, at the tail end of it. It was like an 8-minute video, so I don't know, maybe 750 or something. But if you go back and you look at that, she is running to try to save the day. She just doesn't get there in time in order to prevent that pin or prevent the call of it. So once Collins is disposed of at that point, then Diesel comes back and does essentially the same thing that Animal Instinct attempted to do in the pinning of countering the Jinx. Kalaki has her rolled up. Diesel gets on the apron. She uses her foot and pushes in and gives Kalaki the leverage, and she's happy to have cheated to have won. So there you go. Kalaki, after the match, has a promo essentially putting Diesel over. But I wrote down as she was doing that, I was like, have we really seen anything to show how good she is? Diesel had a good promo following that. Give her credit there. But she comes off as unproven. That was what I walked away with that with. Like, she still comes off unproven to me. Didn't do all that much. It felt like a match between 3 people and somebody else that just popped in every so often. Now, it could have been a case of she might have been hurt. I don't know. Again, tag matches are a good way to hide somebody when they're injured, but they got to be there. But I cannot imagine that WoW would have done that. I mean, there's no real reason to be like, well, I have to be there. You paid. As far as I know, WoW was not functioning off of the if you don't wrestle, you don't get paid method. But there we go. That was the match. You had Animal Instinct do the job to Kalaki and Destiny Diesel. We got another segment following the match where Animal Instinct had a promo, and they sounded more human and pissed than characters. Collins seemed more upset that they stole or finished than anything else, and that was better material. And so, in so many words, basically said that they wouldn't be where they are if they hadn't taken what I do. And now, that, of course, that's not verbatim, but the fact that she had basically admitted that I cheat. Now, we know that Goldie Collins would never admit to the fact that she cheated if she had won. Of course, she's going to deny it in those circumstances. But here, where she just, well, they, I'm not going to just say she, where they just lost to the same tactics that they've employed on everybody else. Well, now they admit to it. It's like, you wouldn't have done it if if you didn't see that it worked. That's the one thumbs up. And it didn't come out of the voice of someone who felt like they were trying to be melodramatic. It came out of the voice of somebody that sounded like they were angry. Maybe we haven't seen the top level of her anger yet, but at least this was a start. And then you got Jinx, who more or less did the same thing. Now, she gave, if the team had to utilize a pun, she gave the pun here. But at least the end pun was something that you can like, okay, I can accept that. The hunt is on. It's not like two angry individuals. And I applaud them for that. Bravo. I don't know where this version of them had been, but this is the version that WoW will probably need. And I say WoW is going to probably need it. Because at some point, if there's any heel team that is going to assume the top mantle, I would imagine it would have to be Animal Instinct. There are other heel teams there, but I don't know if any of them are going to be the front runners for a tag title before them. If and how they would get it, it would be interesting because obviously he not baby faces. And I don't know if there's a top babyface team that can challenge either one of them. And as I'm saying it out loud, it's like, the more I think about it, it's like, it's very thin on the babyface side, it feels like. Because I don't know, the Dojo Defenders are they the only babyface tag team that's still there? I mean, Big Rigs and Bourbon doesn't sound like they're around or may not be around for a while. Who else was out there? I mean, Boogie and Cruz are there, but I don't know if I see them as a top team they're the only babyface team that's around. It feels like I said, Dojo Defenders, yeah. No, okay, Sierra Sands and Xena Phoenix. But they haven't established anything as of yet. So I don't know if there's, and I guess we just left Destiny Diesel and Kalaki. I wouldn't put it past why to put belts on them, but man, I still don't know if I feel like it ain't my decision to make. But I don't know if that would be the best choice, the best option. Anyhow, because I would say you got the mites, but I sincerely doubt that WoW would put them over like that. It'd be nice if they did, but I don't know if they will. Okay, where were we? Getting past the Animal Instinct promo, and thumbs up on there. Much better material, even as short as the promo was. Next segment was a Gabriella Cruz video profile package. And this is much the same as what we got with Destiny Diesel, another profile package. And I guess for the sake of simplicity, they had Cruz speaking her native tongue, which is Portuguese. And they just had the subtitle. Again, can't say that they do bad packages. I cannot ever say that they do bad work in that. You can question the when and the why we're seeing it, but I cannot say that they don't put some effort and work behind the production of. Zayn explains that Cruz was already scheduled to face Penelope Pink somewhere within this segment. And because now she has the title, Cruz gets a title shot. And I wrote down, you know what, that's as good a reason as any. I appreciated the effort of having explained. If you listen to this podcast at any given point in time, you know that the explanation means a lot to me. Or at least the effort of. And I'm not going to go against that logic. If that's the logic they looking to employ, like, hey, they were already scheduled. She happened to win the championship, so now this match turns into a championship match. I'm good with that. I also see this match as a perfect TV championship match. And I say that, I mean that Cruz had not been presented as one of their main event players. At least not yet. She might be pushed at some point. But up until now, I would say that she's not been presented as one of their main event players. For whatever hierarchy that the Wild roster may have. Penelope Pink obviously has been. But because Cruz isn't necessarily on a bottom rung either, not necessarily main event, not the bottom of the barrel, she's a well-respected professional wrestler that on that roster is somewhere in the middle and up. This works for TV. Especially, you're not going to try to go through every theoretical money match that we might have. They can't do that. Because I've said before, I admit that them trying to sell week-to-week TV, cannot be easy at all points. Because they've got to constantly try to encourage people like, well, this match is going to be the best one. This one's going to be the best. This championship match is going to be off the hook. No, this one's going to be, you got that. It's just an ongoing, never-ending thing. And they don't have a chapter marker by way of a streaming event, a pay-per-view, big live, event. They don't have one of those to march it towards to say those, oh, this is the one, guys, that is always on TV. So, that is a problem. Well, it's a problem that's, they can deal with, but it's a problem. It's an understandable problem. We'll call it that. But here with Cruz being where she is, being seen how she has been seen as a wrestler against Pink, not really having a program, not really having an angle, not having any sort of personal issue or storyline or anything like that that's leading them towards this. This is like my definition of a TV championship match. Somebody that can get in there and wrestle against the champion that can have a good match with them, and vice versa, the champion can have a good match with this person without anybody necessarily biting their nails about, oh my God, is she going to, I don't think most people would have watched going into it assuming that Cruz would win it. But she may have given you hope at some point, if that makes sense. But anyhow, I've gotten way past her video package. I started talking about their main event. But I started talking about it because of how Nigel explained it. That was what led me towards that. And again, I will concede to say, at least it's something. At least it's not just boom, here you go. And it's also not a situation that would have required Pink or Cruz to publicly acknowledge it. They would not have to do that. It's not necessarily their story. It is the story of the promotion and how they assign the match. So it fits in this narrative. After the video package from Cruz, we get a Fab 4 promo voiced over by Penelope Pink. This shows Pink winning the title again. Sounded good. It sounded like it was mainly to fill time, though. She put over the group and reinforced that she would, that she was the heel in this equation. It wasn't really aimed at anyone in particular. It was just a promo. And that's fine. Again, would it have been something to have her aimed at Gabriella Cruz? Maybe. But I will say, to reinforce the point that because Cruz had not been presented that way, because Cruz is a recognized good wrestler, but not necessarily we'll call it in the Santana Garrett spot, the Princess Aussie spots, the Tormenta spots, the Del Rey's, Classmaster. Those have been the names that have largely been positioned as their main event players. Genesis is probably in and out of that. She's been in it, but she can kind of float between. She's probably a unique case in that. But because she isn't those things, she can provide a competitive, entertaining matchup. The both of them. It works for just a nice, watchable episode of WoW. This was literally a 2-match show. And honestly, I was more or less fine with that. I didn't necessarily care for the less field time profiles, but I think the matches took some of the bite off of that. If I can say anything for it, they gave that much. The next segment was the promo for the next episode, that essentially being the upcoming Full Metal Massacre. Segment after that, the main event. This, I don't know, that was another thing I was going to bring up. I don't know if there's somebody else that was editing or directing this. But it did have, in my opinion, a different feel than most of the stuff that we have seen while present generally. And I'm talking about like right from the beginning of it. As maybe it could have been camera shot, I don't know. It could have been them holding Cruz back while you were looking at the LED boards. I mean, it looked and felt as close to a wrestling thing as I would say. That's probably the highest compliment I can give it. got the camera shot where Kamryn Jones sets this up like the main event. This is when I started writing. Does this episode have a different director? Even their walkouts felt more important to me. We start up on Cruz, the music, the logo, the boards. She comes out there. She's already kind of raising or attempting to raise the excitement of the fans. She's waving her arms up, right? And she comes on out to ringside. Well, not ringside, but she comes out to the ring. That was, the little headdress deal and all that good stuff. That was I guess nice for her, and it felt like it fit Vegas. I don't know if she was aiming for a showgirl thing, but yeah, like I said, when I saw the little headdress, like, that was a nice touch. Then you got the opposite side of that, where you got to see and read the Penelope Pink opening. And was this a different one? I don't even remember that. And again, much like when Cruz came out there, it felt like it had a different vibe to it just in general. So they come out, Penelope Pink and Lana Star. Lana's dressed in a different outfit, different episode. I guess that's her gimmick. She's always got something new. She's got the tiara. She's walking out like she won Miss Wow, or whatever the case may be. Pink is out with the championship belt, and she walks her manager out the ringside, and she's showing off for the people out there in Vegas. And Pink gets in, and they have the introduction. And Katie Marie Jones gives the big fight feel. I honestly did not know what to say. I could not believe my eyes. I have been asking for this moment in WoW for so long. She had already started, and she being Katie Marie Jones, she had already started getting her own rhythm and becoming her own voice. But then we got here. It's like even the setup for it different. Didn't repeat what she was doing last season or what Hunker was doing before her. This felt more important. That's probably the best way I could describe it. It felt more important than their average match, as it should. You're the champion, it should feel important. And if they keep doing this, I can see the championship growing or maybe getting itself over. It ain't over yet. But maybe they can get to the point where they get this thing over. This is a pretty straightforward deal. The Pink establishes herself as the heel early, and Cruz worked serious. There's no dancing. There was no game. I mean, she did it when she came out to ringside. But once the match was on, then the match was on. And I applaud that. Somewhere in the course of the match, Zayna McClain implied that Lana was untrustworthy. I was like, I don't know what any examples of that. And I only say that because, it's not like there's a lot of storyline that would lead you to believe that. She has come off as self-absorbed. Absolutely. I don't know if I've gotten the untrustworthy thing yet. The Holly Swag thing. The storyline was ridiculous. Okay? Let's just go ahead and say that. That storyline was absurd and it was ridiculous. But even throughout that, she wasn't untrustworthy. Like the person that they put all their blame on was Swag. And the only thing that you really got from her is that she chose a side. And after choosing a side, she, I guess, went along with the crap that Swag was trying to do. Like, you two have to wrestle or whatever the case may be. And then she did what she had to do to bring her team back together. She turned on the person that was announced as the troublemaker like 5 or 6 times throughout the course of the match. I'm not sure if I would go with saying that Lana Star was untrustworthy. She's a heel, absolutely. Narcissistic, sure. Self-absorbed, absolutely. But I don't know if I got that. Anyhow. Pink worked and she was in control of a fair amount of this until her arrogance worked against her and Cruz found an opening, which I thought was a good way to structure this. And it worked at a pace that I felt like even the most novice of fan out there would understand what was going on without, being too slow and making everybody feel like, I don't know, hurry up. So these two were able to give their story in the ring. And considering that there was nothing else to it, they had to give their story in the ring. They didn't have a choice. Like I said, there's no storyline here. There's no angle. There's no program. There wasn't even promos to one another about I'm going to win or I'm going to keep it. It just was, we have this match and here it is. So everything that they got, any emotion that you might have felt, had to come from what they were able to do bell to bell. And looking at it in that, set of circumstances, I say, bravo. Lana Star performed a sacrifice play, and she still looked the part of the manager. She didn't look like she was trying to get in Cruz's way, like, I dare you to go through me. She looked like she was doing what she had to do to stall. And she didn't put up in much of a fight when Cruz just kind of grabbed her and shoved her to the side. I wrote Pink and Cruz work well together. And that this is a match that I could see revisited. The finish of this is Penelope Pink hits her pretty pink pretty much out of nowhere. Pink more or less wins clean. Yeah, she had to cheat throughout portions of the match. I think she raked her eyes to be able to get out of that so she could hit a finish. But when I say more or less clean, and no feet on the ropes, no outside object, that not totally clean, but more or less. This was an enjoyable match. This was an enjoyable episode. There wasn't a lot of storyline being thrown in your face to question or see holes in. This was a fine episode. This is about as close to a full episode that it felt like a just straight wrestling show that I can remember while doing in a long time. Not saying they haven't done it, but it's a long time since I felt them do anything close to this. I wrote down, it wouldn't surprise me if this episode got a low rating, but it also wouldn't surprise me if this main event helped convince more wrestling fans to give it a shot. It's tough when you're the first, and not saying it's the first good main event that they've had. I don't want to say that, but if they were selling it just solely on the idea of the wrestling, I can understand if not enough wrestling fans watched it because of prior WoW episodes. angles and whatnot. But I could also understand if this particular match started to convince people, give it a chance. So there we were with this. This is a way different episode. I mean, other than the intro, and I can't even really say that. Like, that had some reality in it, that somebody at least tried to look for Santana Garrett. Animal Instinct didn't come off as gimmicky this week. This was an episode that had very little camp in it. And very, very little. I mean, the campiest thing that you might have gotten, surprisingly, would have been maybe Destiny Diesel herself. That maybe. It's like I can't even put that on Animal Instinct. Surprisingly, I can't say it. So there we have it. Another episode of WoW down in the books. But what is up for their next one? The good old press release. What do they have waiting for me this week? Because I haven't read this one yet. And I expected to have the Massacre, the Full Metal Massacre, because they've been pushing towards that and advertising that. And the last time that they've had their podcast, and pretty much was talking about that's coming up next. I guess they got to present that thing as if it's in real time. But let's see what they have written, shall we? And maybe a quick talk about it. I don't know. The next episode will be 423, season 4, episode 23. Title: No Rules, All Risk, One Reward. The IQ superior Samantha Smart finally breaks her silence about the shocking rumors surrounding Santana Garrett's disappearance. The enlightened Miranda the Mindful, Dr. Pam Demonium, and Nova Sky, with Samantha Smart and the Classmaster in their corner, are ready to share their brilliance in trios action against Little J Boogie, Sierra Sands, and the Albanian grappler Xena Phoenix. And finally, the long-awaited Full Metal Massacre match main event has arrived. The rules are simple but chilling. No DQ, no time limit, falls count anywhere. The reigning champions, top-tier Coach Campanelli, Candy Crush, and Gloria Glitter put their titles and their egos on the line against the fiercest rivals, Monsters and Metal, Chainsaw, Daisy Lane, and Fury, an all-out war for the gold. So what are we getting here? That 2 matches? Okay. So I imagine it would be something along the lines of what we just saw, that they're going to have to fill some of it, unless, and I would guess if there's any one of them that's going to be lengthy, it would be the Full Metal Massacre match. And I mean, Monsters and Metal have to come out on top on that. If they lose again, I mean, what else are they going to do? This is it. It's now or never. And then we got the trios. Well, so I guess it's just trios night on WoW. So we'll have the Enlightened against Boogie, Sands, and Phoenix. So I guess Sands and Phoenix are a team. Boogie had to work with them since her partner was in the main event last week, or this episode that I'm currently reviewing. Well, I can only guess that the Enlightened should come out on top there. Now, whether they will, because you know how WoW can be, they can just like, all right, you guys are going to lose today. We don't need you to be strong going into whatever it is that we're trying to do. Just be like everybody else. But I would assume the enlightened. So I expect the enlightened and Monsters in Metal to be the wins of the episode. And this is also the episode where I expect Samantha Smart to basically admit publicly to kidnapping. And Dave McClain and Nigel Zane not to do anything about anything. So, time will tell and we will see. Thank you for tuning in for this episode. I appreciate your time and your ears. If you have not done so, please, provided that you're on YouTube, that is, do the YouTube things, like, share, and subscribe. If you are not there, but you are listening to this on other podcast platforms, because we are available on greater podcast platforms everywhere, ratings would be nice, or review. If you don't know where to find any of that, you know what you need to do. You need to go to WPNWrestling.com. That is the centerpiece and the focal point for all of the things that are going on in WPN, all episodes. The podcast, scroll down, got a little podcast widget with all episodes sitting there, and then you go back up, and you got the stream that is going on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and it features videos that has talent and names that have started out small, but it went big, and it went on to many different locations, including the WWE, AEW, TNA, I guess Ring of Honor at this point, and even MLW and WoW. Imagine that. And with that being said, this is Mr. Green saying that this is Mr. Green saying so long, and we will see you all on the next go-round. Take care, everybody.
Thank you for listening to the WPN's Rights and Wrongs of Pro Wrestling. If you have questions or comments, please contact us via our Facebook or our YouTube channel at the Women's Pro Wrestling Network. If you're new to the WPN, feel free to subscribe to our channel and like our page. We appreciate your support. Thank you again for listening.